Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. It's a feeling now. Get 'em high, get 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
Welcome to the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Alex.
And I'm out of here if I see another Chris Streveler video.
I'm so surprised that you showed up this week after what we did last week to you, Steve. I want to say I apologize, but I don't regret it.
And also,
I
thank you
wouldn't
for being
believe
such
it.
a big supporter and fan of the CFL and myself personally.
Come on, you knew that was happening again. Hey, you're still here.
Yeah, you're still here.
He's gone. He's going to leave.
Yeah.
He's totally dropping out.
I'm tempted. We got a lot to talk about. I might just drop out in the middle, just out of nowhere.
And of course, I just want to. Next time I'm looking for a pillow, I need to find something that's made of Bomber fan because they're both soft and supportive, apparently. Because what a
Wow.
week it's been.
The title of this episode is not a typo, Linnipeg. We're going to talk a lot about Linnipeg in a little bit. You can give us a follow on X at Piffles Pod. You can give me a follow at RealAlexD.
You can find me at Safamod.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports. Even you, Streveler, you can. You don't need to pity follow me because I know you're now a listener of the show.
Just a heads up, Steve. He's like Beetlejuice now. If we mention him 3 times, he shows up.
Please, for the love of God. Can we end this show right now? Nothing good will ever come from that. There is no good that comes from him popping up on this show. Nothing.
Man, you
Don't
still
do
owe us.
it.
You still owe us $20 for that.
Yeah.
I ain't paying nothing.
We're on Facebook as well. Check us out there. Of course, the website, pifflespodcast.com. Of course, Piffles Podcast brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Thanks for listening on your favorite podcast platform, watching on YouTube or on SaskTel Max TV on demand. Thank you so much. Let's get into some Rider football talk. It's time for the opening kickoff. All right, so not a lot in terms of signings over the last week, just because free agency is, especially with the Ed Hervey tampering window.
We're
know
in
what
the
hap-
lull.
Yeah, we're in after the first like 3 or 4 days, it just kind of drops off. But there was a Friday afternoon news dump that the Riders had. To me, a big signing, a significant signing. Signing an offensive lineman, right guard Ryan Sevier from the Calgary Stampeders. He was an all-star in 2022 and struggled a bit last year, but I think everybody on the Stamps struggled last year, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But adding another Canadian to that line, guys, what do you think of this signing?
When you can sign any all-star in this league, it doesn't matter if it's a year removed, you still have a decent player. You're not wrong. A bunch of Calgary Stamps fans are like, not a big loss. He had a bad season. Yeah, he had a bad season, but look what happened when Derek Dennis moved here. He went from all-star to we couldn't get rid of him fast enough, unfortunately, and then he went back to his all-star ways. Sometimes it's a bad year. We don't know. He could have been dinged up, could have been nicked up. So hopefully he's here. New system. I just want to know what we're going to do with all these Canadian linemen because we can't have all of them out there. And you still got young guys like Fry and Bandy and Zur waiting in the wings, wanting to get play time of their own. It's going to be hard to get some playing time if you're a Canadian offensive lineman this year.
I think it's pretty obvious prior to the news of the signing that happened earlier today. I think everybody would have assumed the same thing, that they were going for nationals on the O-line. I mean, it just makes sense. Phillip Blake and Furland both have tackle experience. It was what we all expected. And honestly, adding an all-star out of Calgary and out of Calgary's system is never a bad option, especially along that O-line where they have produced guys year after year after year. There's talent there. I'll take a guy off an off year, likely coming in a little bit cheaper than he was last season, where's the downside?
Mark Mueller would know him very well. Of course, Corey Mace would know him well from his time in Calgary. So they know what they're getting with this guy. And this isn't going to be the big sexy talk, but we're going to talk O-lineman here for a little while, because to me, this is the big thing for the Riders right now, especially with the ratio. And we'll talk about that signing right now that you mentioned, Steve, that they signed here on Tuesday, left tackle Jonathan Hubbard. Fun fact, I actually know this guy. I've heard of him before. He performed at Grey Cup halftime show here in 2022, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yep.
You're like Florida Georgia line. You're half right.
The guy's only 26 years old, has 3 years of NFL experience, is a true left tackle. And I know I've been big on this the last couple of years. Last year, they brought in 1 left tackle. This year, now they have 3 true left tackles on the roster that are going to come into camp and compete for that spot. And this just goes to show me that they're taking it seriously. Jeremy O'Day is really taking it seriously. When you look at last year, Gerald Hawkins was always plan A at left tackle. Always. He was written in there before training camp started. The guy didn't report to training camp. They put him on the suspended list. When he finally decided to show up, they gave him the starting job right away. What happened? Like 5 plays into the game, he got hurt. So that's your plan A. That was 2023. That ain't going to happen in 2024. There is going to be plan A, B, C, possibly down to D. Like there's a lot of options here. How do you guys think that this O-line is going to shake out in terms of American or Canadian on the tackle position there at left tackle?
Well, I think the biggest advantage that we've got is that we have flexibility because of the talent that we've got at receiver. They can realistically throw 6 or 7 Canadians out there on offense alone. You look at MLS, KSB, who am I missing?
Lennius and Picton.
Thank you. Lennius would be the obvious other starter. Picton as a rotational guy. And then 4 O-linemen across nationals across the O-line. And that's not even taking into account Hardrick as a nationalized American, whatever that rule is. I think the plan is to find an American left tackle and have that depth at the Canadian guard spots with, Furland, Blake, Godber. You've got at center. Bandy can go behind him. You just have such a ton of options if they can find that American guy. But if they don't, you push Blake or Furland out there, and you still have a ton of depth along the O-line, which if we would have said that a year ago, people would have called us nuts. But something's happened in the last month or so to wake O'Day up and realize we need an offensive line.
He must listen to the show. But really, if you think about it, though, yeah, there's limited roster spots, though. You typically only dress 6 offensive linemen. So if you're running 2 Americans out there, you're going to have your 3 Canadians in the middle. You only have 1 backup spot, and you've got Furland, Blake, Godber, Sevier on penciled in as 4 out of possible 3 spots. Where's Bandy? Where's Fry? Where's Zur? You can't PR all of them. Well, you can, but you're just tempting losing young guys that you want to grow. Like, Philip Blake's old. Like, what are you going to do?
Well, and then you have Evan Florin, who was a draft pick last year. This will be his first full season. He did training camp last year and then went back to school, had 1 more year of eligibility. He's going to be a guy that's going to want to make at least the practice roster, right? So, and then who knows what they draft this year in the draft. So I would imagine they're probably going to draft at least 1 more O-lineman. Probably, I think they might go in the later rounds and push off guys that still have another year of eligibility, just like they did with Evan Florin last year. But you guys are right. It's a ton of options, and Philip Blake might not even start on this team this year with what they have. And if that happens, you're putting some pretty decent young talent on the practice roster, hoping they don't get scooped up. And that's not something we've had here in a while. And I like it. I think it's great. If you can get one of those Americans at left tackle, but somebody who's going to be there for a while. If you can get a long-term plan there, that's a big time win for this organization. They haven't had that since
2019.
Yeah. Even then, it wasn't that long-term of a plan that we had a good left tackle there, right? I'm happy that the O-line is finally made a priority, and it just goes to show me that they're not going to stop until they get it fixed. And I'm curious to see how it all shakes out. That's going to be my favorite battle in training camp, is what that offensive line is going to end up being. You can really pencil in for the starters now, but then that left tackle is a question mark, but there's plenty of decent options behind there. So it's going to be a good battle in training camp to me.
Like I said, you have 5 names you can pencil in the starting line, and that's for 4 positions, because that's not including the left tackle. Like, you can't go wrong with the center 3 Canadians we have lined up already. And like I said, there's 4 options, plus you got a bunch of young guys pushing to make this roster too. Because at some point, Bandy's got to make the roster. At some point, Fry's got to get decent live fire. It's a great problem to have. It's just very weird, because typically we're like scrounging. Like, do we need to sign Josiah St. John just so this feels normal?
Well, with the preseason games being 4 days apart, 5 days apart, there's going to be some bumps and bruises. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple of these guys, especially the Canadians, end up on the at least 1 game injured list to start the season, just to, kind of get things hammered out in the first week. But they'll be.
I think Blake's going to end up with a paper cut that's going to keep him out for a while.
That wouldn't surprise me, and you save a decent amount of money on the salary cap doing that as well. So
gives them some time to check out what these young guys can do.
And there's
and don't tell me they're cheating, because everyone does it.
Literally everybody. Matt Cause, CFL.ca, had a really good article saying that the Riders' biggest winner of free agency is Trevor Harris. Pretty much everything the Riders have done is revolved around giving Trevor Harris help and getting him time. So shoring up the defense, making sure that they're not on the field as long as they were last year. And then the run game, especially the O-line, getting him help. Kind of hard to argue that point. It's, it seems like they're all in on Trevor Harris this year, and they're doing everything they can to make things as easy for him as possible.
Well, we kind of discussed it last episode, especially on the offensive side, shoring up your line, shoring up your run game. That's the best thing you can do for a slower, older quarterback. Like this guy, let's face it, Trevor Harris is not going to outrun the rush. He's going to try to move up in the pocket as best he can. So you got to keep
after the last time he ran the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Like you got to give him time. The best way to give him time, strong offensive line and a run game that the other team respects. Because if they can just pin their ears back and go, well, Mason Fine is going to be called into duty way earlier than anyone in this fan base wants to see.
And one other signing over the last week here by the Riders, also made on Tuesday, was defensive back Marcus Murphy. So just more competition there in the defensive backfield. We'll see, again, kind of like the O-line, who's going to stick around on the practice roster. Usually you have 2 or 3 defensive backs stick around. So maybe he's one of them. Who knows?
Well, we had a retirement. That's the reason why. We found out what happened to Tremaine Washington.
Yes, Tremaine Washington did retire. Yeah. Weird that they wouldn't put it on the transaction list, that the CFL wouldn't do that. I don't know why everything like this needs to be so secretive, but
he just disappeared into the great beyond.
Yeah, that's the CFL for you. We need to talk about Linnipeg here. And that's not a typo. Linnipeg with an L. The Saskatchewan Roughriders maybe coined that, I guess would be the word. Bravo to the social media team. Absolutely fantastic. They're doing a great job over there for the Riders. The media team is doing great stuff right now.
And it was subtle enough to get the dig in, but it wasn't like the loser peg, which is over the top and just ridiculous.
kind of expected at this point, right?
Yeah.
So spelling Winnipeg with the L and having Linnipeg had Bomber fans going off saying, "You guys don't even know how to spell over there in Saskatchewan." Well, that joke went way over your head. Par for the course for most of Manitoba anyway, I think, right? But they're taking it so seriously. I've never seen, and Greg, you're gonna hate this as a New England Patriots fan. When you're good and you're winning championships, as the Patriots did for a long time, as the Bombers did here recently, everybody hates you. That's it. Everybody is sick and tired of you. And that's what it is here in the CFL. We're sick and tired of seeing Winnipeg in the Grey Cup. And anytime you can get a little subtle dig on them, you're going to take it, right? Losing all your players in free agency. That's where the L comes from in Linnipeg. They're so Charmin soft. The fan base is so soft. And I saw Patriots fans do the same thing. Nobody got more upset. Maybe not you specifically, Greg.
Easy now.
But when you're winning championships, what do you care what other fan bases think? I'd say just bring it on. We're winning. We're getting to the big game every year. And Winnipeg fans are not doing that though, but they're actually legitimately like upset by this stuff. And like, guys, it's just football. It's fun. It's entertainment. It's social media. It's not super serious. Yes, it's serious for the players and the livelihood. I get that, but it is entertainment.
Football's a business, yes.
And they're having fun. The social media team is having fun. Have fun with it. The Bombers, when they're winning, have a very good social media team, and they're putting out great videos, making fun of poutine when they beat Montreal, doing something when they beat the Riders, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter.
Regina style pizza.
And they love that over in Winnipeg.
But
Everybody
as
else
soon
is
as you
loving
turn the
this right
tables,
now.
yeah. As soon as you turn the tables, it's not fair. It's just mean. It's rude. You can't spell.
Yeah.
Charmin soft is the perfect way to describe that fan base. And like you said, they should be able to ignore all of it. They've been to 4 Grey Cups in a row. They're the class of the league right now. And all they're worried about is the Riders social media guy making fun of their back-to-back losses. And then Greg,
some loudmouth podcaster.
I love that the Riders social media guy doubled down with the trigger warning on Greg's post. That just chef's kiss on that. And it brought more. And like, relax, guys. I said this multiple times after the Winnipeg joke that it's not that big a deal. This is supposed to be fun. Do you remember 8-10 years ago when the CFL used to have Meme War Mondays?
Mm-hmm.
And the social media departments had fun with each other?
I miss Max.
Right? That is the entire purpose of social media. It is entertainment. And it seems somewhere along the way, the CFL had forgotten that until the last couple of years. They're starting to bring it back. And now the Riders have gotten in on it. And we've been pushing them for years to do this, to do the entertainment, to have a little fun. And I really hope that this is just the start of them really digging in and having some fun, because it's going to be entertaining if they do.
My favorite part is you had one person in particular argue that Winnipeg is dumb. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense. And we should be embarrassed about it. And then in the next post, he's complaining about how offended he is by it. So is it dumb or are you offended? I don't understand what you're arguing right now. But the fact remains, the best were the fans that got the joke and thought it was funny. Did all, like, I put out a series on all the teams.
I love those.
And
those are great.
Some fans found it funny, and including of their own fan base. My favorite was Steph from the Calgary. It used to be the Horsemen. What are they now? The Go Stamps Go podcast?
Stamps Go.
Go Stamps Go.
It's like, yeah, that's accurate, and it hurts me about the Stamps. But it's fun. Like, we need to have fun ourselves, because football is entertainment. And do some of my jokes land? Sure. Do all of them? No, that's fine.
Most
At
of
this
them
point, it's a shotgun effect. Like we could bring Strevy on on a weekly basis,
I'm
and
sorry,
me
what
and Alex would find we could bring Strevy on a weekly basis.
Well, like
And
this.
also, thank you for being such a big supporter and fan of the CFL and myself personally.
I hate you guys so much right now.
That's never gonna get old.
I
No,
know
it's
it's
not.
not.
But the fact remains is don't crush someone else's vibe. I don't know how to say it and not sound like a hippie. Like if someone finds it fun, let them find it fun. Don't just because you hate it or you find it dumb, just move on. Like I don't need to hear about how lame it is. Sure, some of the jokes didn't hit. That's fine. But this guy found it hilarious, so who cares?
Speaking of, and you played the video at the right time. Speaking of things I want to give the middle finger to, I would like to take this opportunity to flip off the Kansas City Chiefs, because when November rolled around, we were done with the dynasty talk. There was no more. It was over. People weren't talking about the Blue Bombers as a dynasty. It was done. But after the Chiefs won their third in 5 years in a league with 32 teams, I might add, not 9. Now all I'm hearing from Bombers fans out in Linnipeg is the dynasty is back on. So I won't do it on camera, but to the Kansas City Chiefs for ruining what remains of my offseason. Thanks for that, because now we have to listen to them all over again.
Just be that much sweeter when they lose in the playoffs this year.
I hope they miss the playoffs.
I was gonna say they're gonna miss the playoffs.
I mean, the gap is narrowing. Actually, let's go there. So that's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. I want to jump to the Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. I was going to have this later, but I did my very first Alex's version, speaking of Kansas City Chiefs and Taylor's version, whatnot, of the power rankings. And I put Montreal at first. In my first power rankings of the year, no matter what, to be the man, woo, you have to beat the man. Montreal's the Grey Cup champions. They're number one on my list, regardless of what happened to them right now.
And they did nothing to get worse. On top of it, not only are they champs, but they brought back a majority of their roster. Unlike
on defense, especially, which is what was a huge,
which got them there, which
yeah, exactly,
legit got them there. Yeah.
So I have Montreal at first. I originally had Winnipeg in second. Then I said, screw them, drop them down a third. But Three Down Nation also had power rankings out, voted by the staff there, and they had Winnipeg as second, and everybody's freaking out. Winnipeg should be first. They're the betting favorites to win the Grey Cup. Well, betting favorites and power rankings are completely two different things.
Let me explain something as a former degenerate gambler. Betting, I used to gamble a lot.
I still do, but I used to too.
Yeah, I used to too. Yeah, I used to, and I still do. But fact remains is the betting lines are set to make the people who set the lines money. So if they know Winnipeg fans are crazy enough,
Linnipeg,
they will.
Linnipeg.
Linnipeg. This is gonna be hard. Linnipeg fans are crazy enough. They are going to put their money down. So you want to give them favorable odds to get more money out of them, because people with higher payouts are going to take the money from the Linnipeg fans. So you have to balance it out. That is why. That is also why the Riders are heavy favorites in pretty much every game they play as well, even if they're supposed to be losers. So yeah, the betting favorites have nothing to do with power rankings. It's all about money. And that is gambling by Greg.
Possibly a segment later on in the season. Don't follow Greg's advice.
Yeah, don't follow my advice.
But
we need a legal disclaimer before we offer any real legitimate gambling advice.
Just me doing like a rainbow. Do not follow my advice.
Yes. But is having Winnipeg at 2 or 3 in the power rankings too high with what they've lost? Because they have a lot of money. Like, they kept a lot of really good players. They're still going to be a good team. I still think they're going to finish first in the West. But right now, as it stands, that's a lot of money tied up in about 5 guys. That's a large portion of your salary cap tied up in 5 players with Caleros, Brady Oliveira, Dalton Schoen, Willie Jefferson, Adam Big Hill, etc. Kenny Lawler.
Like they have 7 guys at almost half their cap. Like
Half
maybe
the
a third.
roster is going to have to make minimum.
Like that is a lot of hoping guys you've scouted turn out.
And that's not even factoring in the guys that they've lost. You look at Yoshi Hardrick to the Riders, DeMario Houston to the to the Stamps.
Yeah,
they've lost. That was the most outstanding lineman last year, the interceptions leader on defense last year, and all of their guys are a year older. We were talking about Winnipeg being, long in the tooth last year or the year before that.
Steve, Linnipeg.
Damn it, Linnipeg. We were talking about Linnipeg being old 2 years ago. They keep bringing back the same roster that's lost in back-to-back Grey Cups, Winnipeg, and you wonder why they're starting to drop in those rankings. That's why they've lost it. I don't understand the game plan here, and I honestly think they are too high. I think this is the year. Now, keep in mind we've predicted Calgary to drop out of the playoffs for our entire existence. So
they should have.
Maybe
the only
Craig
reason they made the
Dickinson.
playoffs last year is because the Riders and the Elks and the Red Blacks were absolute garbage. That's the only and they had to make the playoffs. That was the reason, was because the Riders couldn't win a
win one game. One more game. All the Riders had to do was win one more game.
in their last 7.
Yep.
Yeah.
But no, they're a fourth or fifth team to me right now, and I think that is being generous. They're going to have to show me.
If I was doing the power rankings, Montreal, yes, to be the man, you got to beat the man. Toronto still is coming off at 16-2, and yes, they've lost some players, but they still have a decent core there, so you have to respect that. Winnipeg at 3, sure. I still like BC, what they've done. I might even put Winnipeg 4. So, once again, the fact that the Bomber fans are so soft that this is a giant issue just cracks me up. Like, everything to them is a slap to the face at this point.
To me, it's the gap between Winnipeg and everybody else in the West is narrowing. It's not that Winnipeg is a worse team than anybody else, because I don't believe that. I still think they're the most well-rounded team in the entire league, especially after the losses Toronto had. I think Toronto is going to be just fine with their scouting that they've done very, very well bringing in players the last couple of years. And
John Murphy does Facebook working overtime.
Yeah, and I have no reason to expect otherwise this year. Winnipeg, well, they've brought in a lot of guys in free agency. They've done some decent scouting. But now it's when, Danny Mac down in the States, are you going to be able to find a lot of these guys that are going to come in, produce at a high level, and only make $65,000 a year or whatever minimum is? So to me, it's just that the gap is narrowing. They're still the best team in the West until somebody beats them and knocks them off their throne. But it's not the surefire thing that it has been the last 3 years. But
as always, the West is going to be super tight. The Riders once, and I hate when people, the Riders won free agency. Riders made a lot of good moves in free agency. Did they win it? I don't know.
No, Ottawa wins it. Ottawa wins free agency every year.
Yeah. Last time we won free
agency,
only thing they win well for us.
Yeah.
So I like the Riders are definitely going to take a step forward this year. BC is probably where they were last year. They kept basically everyone they needed to keep. Calgary, they still got Jake Mayer back there. I have no idea how that's going to look. And we're year 4 into a Chris Jones? Like, this is where he's supposed to take a step forward? Is this only 3? Either way, year 3 into Chris Jones' franchise is where they're supposed to take that step finally. So
he almost took us to a Grey Cup in year 3.
Yeah.
Well, and they have
stupid Cody Fajardo getting a touchdown.
Pretty decent quarterback in McLeod Bethel Thompson over there in Edmonton.
So, it's going to be the West is going to be a dogfight this year.
I think every other team has improved outside of Calgary, because honestly, nothing that they've done outside of the Matthew Schilt signing, nothing Calgary's done has impressed me at all this offseason.
Even DeMario Houston was one of their big signings.
good
he was
signing.
legit. It's a good signing, but he is Winnipeg's
Winnipeg.
Nick Marshall. Like, live by the sword, die by the sword. Yeah, he made a lot of interceptions, but he also got burned for quite a few too. So
I don't know. I just see the gap narrowing, and I don't know. It's just funny to see them lose their minds over in Winnipeg. But let
I
them.
hope it happens all season long.
Speaking of Winnipeg and signing cast-offs and junk and all that, they signed Eric Lofton. So that's going to be their new right tackle. What's old is new again, because he was the right tackle. Was supposed to be the next guy in line behind Jamarcus Hardrick. Yoshi comes over here. Their backup, who was supposed to start, retired. So now they panicked and brought in Eric Lofton. Good for him for going back, I guess. But he was bad when given a chance here in Saskatchewan, and I hope that's the exact same player they're getting over in Winnipeg.
he wasn't good. Maybe it's a situational thing, but I'm hoping he plays the same as he did here, because our boys are going to eat then at Labor Day.
You know, if I'm Winnipeg management, I'm sitting
Winnipeg.
there at Winnipeg management at Banjo Bowl last year, watching our offensive line and going, you know what we need to do to get better next year? We need to trade the most outstanding lineman nominee for that guy. That's their scouting department right now. That was their decision making. I realize a lot of it comes into that, needing a bunch of guys making league minimum. But that's a trade I would take 100 times out of 100. And here we are. I mean, Lofton we had high hopes for him when he came in because he came from Winnipeg's system. We thought their O-line is great. Maybe he'll be great. He was not.
No, he wasn't.
So,
He was not.
Derek Dennis seems to disagree. Dennis thinks he is a high-quality lineman and is going to do great things in Winnipeg, but he's going to have to show me, because nothing he did here gave me any indication that Winnipeg's in for success. But I do hope he retires too, just to make it even funnier. I'd like to see their right tackle just sign and retire, or some of them pull a Durant and take a signing bonus and walk away. Be delightful.
I guarantee you Lofton did not get a signing bonus.
Other news around the CFL, Jamal Morrow, we said last week was going to Calgary. Not going to Calgary now. Apparently didn't pass his physical, or issues with it anyway. He's still a free agent.
And like, it all is quiet. I'm really worried. Well, I don't say worried. I'm a little concerned what they found. Obviously, if he can't pass a physical, it's probably going to take a while for a team to give him a shot and make sure he's 100% before they even think about bringing him in, which sucks, because Jamal was a good player for us and great in the community. So
Great dude.
So I hope he lands on his feet. So.
I got a feeling he's going to be a Sean Lemon of 2024, that somebody's going to sign him at some point into the season. May not have quite the same effect that Lemon had, but he's going to be that, week 4, week 5, we need to fix our running back situation, or somebody got hurt. Why not call the guy with some CFL experience? He'll get a shot, assuming it's nothing long term that ruined that physical.
BC Lions officially signing Jake Dolagallo over the last week since we last recorded. A lot of Rider fans very upset about that, and of course it's your typical Saskatchewan Rough Rider fans being afraid of another team's backup. We're going to lose to him. Well, hopefully he's not even. Well, I mean, maybe hopefully he's playing, but for BC's sake, hopefully he's not playing, because that means Vernon Adams Jr. is healthy. I mean, good pickup for the Lions. They got 2 of the 4 best free agent quarterbacks that were available, I guess. And they needed that after Dane Evans retired. But my question to you guys, with Rider fans going crazy about this over the last week, saying that they would have taken Dolagala instead of Fine, which I would have as well. But if Dolagala wants to test free agency, I think the plan was to want to sign Dolagala here in Saskatchewan. But if he says he wants to test free agency, you got to make sure you have somebody else under contract. And that's why I think Jeremy O'Day did sign Mason Fine. I don't think
I
that's
understand.
a long-term answer, but did the Riders make the right decision?
I understand your point, but the problem is they already had Harris under contract. They had Pipkin under contract. They have Shea Patterson under contract. Like, signing Fine wasn't necessarily a necessity. They probably could have waited it out to see if they could get Dolegala into the fold. Would I have preferred Jake over Mason? Yeah, probably. But the fact remains, the Riders made a decision, but they're selling it as like Fine played. They like things that Mason did better than Jake did. I'm sorry, Mason didn't look good there last year. He just did not look comfortable.
Here's the thing to me. You look at Dolegala over the last half of the season. He was the guy that won the job behind Trevor Harris and came in. And I'm sorry, but we went 0-7 to close out the year. And a lot of that had to do with quality on offense. And when you're at quarterback, a lot of that blame falls on your shoulders. To me, he was very much the Nick Marshall of the quarterback spot. He could make all those big plays, but then he would turn around and fumble it 3 times in a game. I don't get the anger over this one. He has all the potential in the world. We can all see it. He's got the size, he's got the arm strength, but it wasn't translating fast enough for them to worry about it. And honestly, I think Mason Fine is fine. He's that guy that's going to come in and not lose you football games. He's not going to dazzle you. He's not going to throw those long bombs, but he makes less mistakes. And honestly, in a backup quarterback, I'd rather have that.
But is he going to win you any games?
Was Jake Dolegala going to win us any games?
He at least won a couple against the 2 best teams in the West.
And then what happened?
Well, the defense really just fell off the rails at that point, honestly.
True,
To me,
but
it wasn't.
How much of that was because our offense couldn't stay on the field long enough to seize?
The offense was still putting up points. They put up way more points than they did with Trevor Harris, and they were 3-1 with Harris. So what does that tell you? That the defense just shut it down. The defense was playing good in the first half of the year. That's why they had the record that they did. And that was with Harris playing pretty crappy, to be honest. Yeah, Harris wasn't turning the ball over, but he wasn't lighting it up by any means. When you're winning 13-12 because of a rouge on a kickoff because someone in Edmonton doesn't know the rules of the CFL, like, thank God for the defense that game, because the Riders didn't score until the very last drive in that game against Edmonton. Dolegala was putting up points.
Well, he was until he wasn't. Like, you look at Labor Day, we won 32-30 in overtime. Then we got blown out 51-6. We put up 27 up on the Elks, put up 28 up on the Red Blacks, put up 26 on the on the Lions, 13 on the Ticats, 19 on the Stamps again, and lost to the Argonauts to finish the season and put up 26. So yeah, they were scoring, but
that comes back to the Nick Marshall thing. He was putting up points, but he just as fast he was turning the ball over in terrible spots, fumbles deep in our zone, interceptions, pick sixes. That was where his problem was. He was doing both of those things, and you need more stability at that defensive or that second quarterback spot. You need a guy who's not going to lose it for you. And I don't get the anger over this one.
He reminded me of the 90s quarterbacks in the CFL. Ron Lancaster, obviously before the 90s, he threw a lot of interceptions. Danny McManus threw a boatload of interceptions. But if you're going to go out there and chuck it, saying this is what we're going to do, and it works, why would you be upset at that?
Well, and Jake Dolegala, his biggest crime is he could never make that short throw. He was throwing that fastball right through the receiver every time.
Yes.
But the way I look at it, this is like Drew Willie all over again, except Jake's not getting a starting job. The people lost their minds when Drew left because he's better than Durant. He's like, the Riders are going to lose to Winnipeg, blah, 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 blah.
Winnipeg.
Linnipeg, sorry. The Riders did fine without Drew
So
Willie.
funny.
So we'll do fine with Jake Dolegala. He's not their starter. Vernon Adams is still their starter, and there's no way in hell Jake Dolegala is going to usurp him for that.
See, I'd be on board with Rider fans being upset about it if Dolegala was signed to be the starting quarterback. Then you'd actually get to see, did the team make the right decision on him or not? Since he's just a backup. Yeah.
But on the flip side now, if you're a betting man, go put money down on BC winning the cup next year. We've seen what happens when guys leave Saskatchewan at quarterback. Zach Caleros did it. Cody Fajardo did it. Now is it Dolegala's turn? And BC looks like they have the chance to win the cup. How funny would that be to see three champs in a row like that, or three?
The fact you're bringing up Zach Caleros as a Rider quarterback that left here to win a Grey Cup, I want to drive to your house right now.
Hey, we're gonna talk about why that wasn't the case in just a minute. And honestly, if the guy we're about to talk about doesn't make a dirty hit, we're not talking about 2 Grey Cups in 4 years and 4 appearances. We're talking about this streak continuing well into our 60s.
Okay, well, let's jump to that team. Well, let's get this part out of the way. Tim White signing in Hamilton. He only got $200K in hard money for this upcoming season. He wanted $300,000, so very far cry from what he wanted. Good on Hamilton for standing firm and getting him at a pretty decent discount.
Like I said, I could say I want to date with Dua Lipa, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And he said he wanted $300K. It wasn't going to happen. No team was going to pay him that much money. Hamilton was his best shot at coming into a dollar value that everyone wanted. Could another team win up $250 and probably got him in? Probably. But I don't know who's got the space for him right now at that dollar amount. Hamilton always made the most sense.
That's the funny thing to me is not 2 days ago, I can't remember who it was saying that there were multiple teams that would be interested in Tim White if his dollar value came down to that 250 range. And then all of a sudden he signs for 200 with the potential for, what was it, 235-ish?
Something like that.
235, 240 in year one and a little bit more in year two. That's a pretty big drop. I'm shocked that there wasn't somebody else kicking tires at that number. Because he's worth that. I would have taken him at that in a heartbeat.
But I think it also comes to, I mean, not enough people talk about this. Yeah, the dollar amount is good, but a lot of players like familiarity, like the coaches, like the system, like the facility, like the players around them. Going to another place for an extra couple of grand, yes, it sets you up maybe a little further in the future, but these contracts are only as good as the paper they're written on. That can go south in a hurry, and that could completely screw up your value for your next contract.
He does realize that Bo Levi Mitchell is still the guy throwing him the ball next year, right? I'm thinking that already screws up the value of his next contract. That's a scary situation.
I like what Hamilton's done addressing free agency, just like the Riders. They needed to upgrade in a lot of spots, and they did. And you guys know I'm a Bo Levi Mitchell guy. That he's not the guy he once was. And yeah, that's not going to go good for Hamilton this year.
The money they threw around this year to improve every other plays, like every other position, it's like they realized they hosted the Grey Cup last year, right?
Yeah.
Like it looks like they're building up to host, and it just seems like it's a year too late. It's just mind-boggling.
Okay, Steve, you mentioned it. This guy retiring, Simoni Lawrence, linebacker for the Ticats, going to be a brand ambassador for the Ticats, which makes sense. I mean, they love him over, and he's a great community guy over there. He is Hamilton Tiger Cats football. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and I know that's going to get a lot of people upset. 8 other fan bases will tell you that he's a dirty player. I happen to love I think
I don't know. I don't know if it's all 8.
most of them anyway. I think he's a player that I don't even think for the most part played to the line. I think he just had a couple dumb moments. Obviously the Zach Collaros one here in 2019. But he has this reputation now of being a dirty player. When I think of dirty players, I think of Jason Jimenez, to a lesser extent, Rob Murphy of the BC Lions, Kyrie Bear, Garrett Marino, obviously. AJ Gas, man, I hated him. I made a sign and took it to a game that said AJ is a gas hole. I did not like that guy. Dirty player.
I'm surprised Dominic McCarr did not make your list.
Yeah, he probably should have.
He should have made your list.
He's
love the man. Love him on your team, but man, that man was dirty.
A lot of people saying Adam Bighill, just in the sense of him diving over the piles leading head first, is dirty, which I believe it is.
That might get you blocked, by the way. That might
Maybe.
get you blocked.
Yeah. But would you put Simoni Lawrence in with those guys when you're talking about dirty players? Because I don't think I would.
Not even close.
This is, we're all on the same mind on this, and which is not popular in Rider Nation. Everyone wants to have that hit on Collaros framed on their wall, I swear, because that's all they ever bring up. That's all we ever hear about. But poor Simoni, every year, gets pelted on being a dirty player, and Zach Collaros. It was a dumb decision. Lord knows I do not want to be judged the rest of my life for the dumb decisions. One dumb decision I've made. And Lord knows I've made a lot of them. So, did that play suck? Yes. Did he play his entire career that way? No. He played a hard physical game. And you're right. I don't think he even approached the line. It's just, he's always going to be known for that one play, essentially.
This is a guy who made, was it 750, 760 career tackles, and he made one that was suspension worthy. One. That's a lot of hits that were completely legal, or at least worth no more than a 15-yard penalty. I've never understood the hate for it, or this odd need to call him a dirty player. A coward, absolutely. Race me, you coward.
For ducking you. Yeah, for ducking you.
But honestly, a dirty player, I've never, and I've been very vocal about this the last few years. He's not even close to that. He doesn't deserve the hate that he gets. He deserves to be in the upper echelon of guys that have played in this league in our generation for the way he's played the game. So to put him in amongst some of those guys that are legitimately dirty guys, I've seen Rider fans try and compare him to Garrett Marino. If you try to make that comparison, you're
they
a
100%
moron.
were. There was media people in this market comparing Garrett Marino to Simoni Lawrence.
The difference between what Simoni has done over a decade plus long career and what Garrett Marino did in a cup of coffee up in the CFL, and to even try and compare the two tells me everything I need to know about your argument. Did he play to the line sometimes? Sure. Rarely. Over it? I don't see it. I don't know. I've never understood it.
I'll always remember Simoni for joining us here on this show and talking about smack talking kids playing Fortnite online. And when they'd start, swearing at him and whatnot, he would just say, "Yeah, well, your mother doesn't love you," and make them quit the game.
It hurts.
Guys with his personality are exactly what this league needs, as many of as they can get, because he just loved life.
Yeah,
I say he loved like he's dead. He's not dead, but like he just has that air about him. You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah,
they need those personalities.
Well, and being a brand ambassador is perfect for him in Hamilton, and of course with the CFL now looking to hire a manager of player marketing. Hopefully we see guys with big personalities like that do something with that, make them stars.
And that's why, he totally fits in that brand role. Like Simoni Lawrence is highly recognizable to all CFL fans. That giant smile of his,
Yep.
and he bleeds black and gold. He's active on social media. He's active in the community. Like, very good role for Simoni Lawrence. And it's good he's sticking around to be in Hamilton, because the CFL needs more of that. Guys coming in, be part of their communities, and that's what grows the game.
Brandon Browner, that's who I missed on my list of being a dirty player.
Yes.
Brandon Browner. Man, I hated that Stamps team so much.
Isn't he in prison right now?
He sure is. He's not getting out for a long time.
No, he's not.
What did he do? It was something murder related, wasn't it?
Sure was.
That's
awesome.
former New England Patriot Brandon Browner too.
Yeah. Patriots and Stampeders, just the worst of the worst. Tell you that right now.
Denver Bronco.
Yep, worst of the worst. Oh, the Denver Broncos.
Oh, the Broncos. You just don't get it, Merch.
But they have Alex Singleton now, so that kind of makes up for it because he's pretty awesome. But anyway, I don't know. I got nothing else. Oh, I do have one more thing. Beetlejuice.
And also, thank you for being such a big supporter and fan of the CFL and myself personally.
Never gonna tire of that.
No.
Now that I have control of a button.
Yeah. No, we both have buttons.
Well, see you.
You're just gonna spend the whole show pushing my buttons.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that'll do it for this week here on the Piffles podcast. Thanks for joining us here. Thanks for watching on SaskTel Max TV on demand, on YouTube, listening on your favorite podcast platform. Of course, Piffles podcast is brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sask Drive in Regina. Special thanks, as always, go to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support making this show possible. Tyler Gilbert, Greg, your guy, Tyler Gilbert, because you got a t-shirt from him.
I did, for all of our support, and I'm also using him on the Thunder Dome podcast. So he lives in Windthorst now, which I'm like, talk about a small world. I played a lot of hockey in Windthorst. So
There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
shout out to Tyler.
He takes us out as normal.
Yep.